Lovely to see you all. We're going to be, in the 2 hours we have together, we're going to be sort of introducing the theme of sustainability orientated innovation and how we frame that within the wider management curriculum, because how we lead people into it is an important one. We're going to be having a very quick break, and then in the after the break, Henning, do you briefly want to touch on what we're going to be doing?
You're muted, Henning.
Sorry for that. So after the break, we'll look into some tools and methods for sustainability-oriented innovation. And a little disclaimer here, because Anna invited us here for some impact train the trainer, which actually I wasn't aware of. So I will not focus actually on the impact project, but just in general on some of the tools and methods for education we generated from previous projects, right? So we'll give you an overview of some of the things we've been developing there, focusing on sustainability, and then facilitate a little discussion about your experiences with these tools, which tools you still might be missing, which ones you have good or bad experiences with. So will be a bit of an open discussion where Leo also prepared us a nice Miro board so we can share some ideas and learn from one another.
And then briefly, John, do you just want to touch on the idea that the connection between the SIG, the learning and coaching SIG, and future educators?
Yes, welcome those of you who have perhaps not joined this particular group before. The idea of the future educators is a community of practice. So it's emerged out of ISPIM and it connects physically, at least at the ISPIM conferences, but a lot of it is these online interactive workshops. But the idea behind them is very simply to exchange experience and ideas. So we all face the challenge in different contexts of teaching, training, coaching innovation, whether it's in universities or in companies or wherever. The challenge is, how do we do it? And can we improve our practice? And so we're looking at various angles. And this workshop today is very much focused on a thematic thing. How do we take a big theme, sustainability, and deliver that effectively? And there was an opportunity to align with the work, particularly of Impact and some of the other projects which ISPIM colleagues have been working on, and slightly extend our reach for this particular session. So we've got a wider group, a more diverse group, but hopefully one that will get stuck in. It's a workshop. That's the most important thing. Please don't sit back and expect a nice everything handed on a plate. This is about sharing ideas and experiences. But yeah, welcome to those who have not joined before, and good to see you all. Bill, back to you.
Lovely. So, so moving through, stating the obvious, really, in green, we all, as teachers, as facilitators, people who focus clients and students on important themes, we all have a responsibility to enable the future generations that we work with to lead sustainability orientated innovation. And we thought it'd be just useful just to have a very chatty reflection from those of us very involved with the future educators. Some quick reflections. So I think, John, you were going to reflect first.
Yeah, I think first thing to recognize is this is not new. Although sustainability has rocketed up, and now, thanks to the awful weather, violent weather events and so on, we're really worrying about the future of our planet. But this kind of concern isn't new. Go back a long, long way, back to the 1970s. We had things like the Limits to Growth, the Club of Rome report, and various other things. And importantly, innovation was always at the heart of that conversation. The Science Policy Research Unit, SPRU, very famously in the 70s, looked at this discussion, but also at the role that innovation might play. And a lot of other research groups and groups which had responsibilities for teaching managers and teaching students in various disciplines began to engage with innovation as part of the conversation around saving the planet, limits to growth, etc. So first thing to say, it's not new. Second thing to say is it's huge. One of my big concerns is right now, everybody's talking about it, and the danger is we're talking at cross purposes. So yes, of course, it's important. It's one of those things like motherhood or apple pie. Yeah, we really need to worry about it, but what are we going to do about it? And in particular, what can we as teachers and coaches do to help move that conversation forward, to give frameworks for thinking about it, frameworks for action? And so my particular contribution here is something which comes up increasingly. I'm currently involved in teaching in Norway an entrepreneurship course where students are trying to create sustainable ideas, innovation ideas, and take them to at least proof of concept, pitching them. I've just started a program in schools, which is sponsored by Cognizant, the big software company, but this is taking 16-year-old school kids, again, focusing on a net zero challenge in our school. What innovations can we come up with? So there's a great deal of concern, but our role, I think, as educators, has got to be to try and shape that. And for that, we need some frameworks and tools. So I'm just going to share one. I've just put it in the chat if you want to follow it through. This was what we did at Exeter a few years back for an organization in Canada called the Network for Business Sustainability, which is sponsored by many of the large companies in Canada and indeed in North America. And they were concerned, what can companies do? It's an educational question, but what can companies do and how might they learn to think about sustainability, not as an abstract concept, but as something we could do something about? How do we engage with this in our strategies and on our innovation approaches? And particularly with a colleague of ours, Richard Adams, we dug through what literature we could find. We did publish this eventually in the International Journal of Management Review, so there's an academic paper as well. But the model, which you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, essentially is what we pulled out. And it's just a framework for thinking and focusing the conversation. The left-hand vertical column, what's the overall approach? And we gave these some useful labels, we hope. What's the innovation objective? What's the innovation outcome? And how does this affect the business or the organization? Because I think this is relevant to public sector as well as the private. So the first area, we were looking at operation optimization, the kind of eco-efficiency thing. And this is really doing what we do, but better. So it's classic incremental innovation. It's increasingly driven by compliance. You have to do this stuff by law, but it's also in self-interest about efficiency. And the sustainability innovation outcome, it reduces the harm we do with the ways we've always done stuff. But it's essentially doing what we do better. And that captures a lot of what's going on today still. And by now, you'd almost say, well, any organization that doesn't think about this is really not a very business-like one, because this is kind of enlightened self-interest. The second zone, organizational transformation, is this thing we see a lot of now in consulting reports, the new opportunities, the green dollar, the green pound, the opportunity to offer new things to the world, which are actually great business ideas as well. So this is doing something different. It's doing good by doing new things, new products, new services, and of course, hugely new business models. It's creating new value and shared value, but it does fundamentally challenge the purpose of the enterprise. Way back in the sort of the last century, to the turn of the millennium, very few organizations, you could think of The Body Shop, founded by an eco-entrepreneur, Anita Roddick. You could think of Ray Anderson and Interface Flooring, but there weren't many. Now, of course, we've got an increasing number of organizations in that space. But the third zone, which is particularly interesting, and I think where much of the conversation now happens and where students are particularly interested, is how do we change society? And at this level, we're talking about systems change. We're talking about aligning supply chains, building ecosystems. What are we doing which requires more than one player to make it happen? So this is doing good by doing new things with others. That will create net positive impact, but because it extends beyond the firm, it's very hard to do. It's very hard to work at that level where we don't have direct controls. So I'm sharing it really because I found this as a helpful framework. I put the link in the chat if you want to follow more. I think we need more frameworks of this kind to help operationalize otherwise a conversation which is, oh, it's terrible, we must do something about it, and we need to be more sustainable. I think, and maybe it's the engineer in me, we have to find ways of doing it. For me, I'll share this one as being quite helpful. But Bill, with a nice cue, because that last thing is all about systems and circularity, can I throw it over to you?
Well, I think we've actually got the next one is, there we go, circular economy, my apologies. So absolutely. I find getting students who tend to have a limited understanding of business in the first place to connect in with systems thinking overall, and specifically thinking about sustainability, the circular economy and the system thinking approaches associated with that, with the famous and widely deployed Ellen MacArthur visual that we're looking at the moment. I find the getting the students to find a way of thinking through this process, where might they fit in as they consider their early roles at the lower levels within organizations. They have challenges in connecting into all of this. Also, there's the issue of time and how long it takes to change the systems that we have now towards approaches which are more likely to give us a circular economy. And so with that, that's the approach we particularly take at Exeter. Lots of you who were in Ljubljana will remember the big focus on circular economy at the conference. This is what we're particularly focusing on, but we're still finding our way to connect students to this because they find the concepts so massive and rather overwhelming. So that's all I wanted to introduce. It's not easy, I suppose, is my summary, and easing them into it is very important. So moving on from there, Henning.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. You can just show the full picture, I suppose, since I cannot steer it here anyway. Right. So, yeah, John just finished saying we need more frameworks of this kind, and here comes the one that we've been working with over the last couple of years. I'll briefly introduce that to you, and it also provides the template for some of the tools that I will present then and give into the discussion then, I think, after the break. So we usually start with this values-based innovation management framework based on a book that a colleague of mine, Florian Lüdecke-Freund, and myself wrote a couple of years ago. We also founded a special interest group within the ISPEM community focusing on values-based and sustainable innovation to address these related issues. And what it does is that it's creates a relationship or analyzes and designs a relation between values present in an organization, values being understood as notions of the desirable or as ordered systems of priority that are in place in any given organization, and the outcomes it produces, right? So there are economic outcomes that traditional economic theory has been focusing about, and that most of us have all been concerned with over the last decades or so, right? So there is, of course, the customer value being created through a product or a service offering. There are wages created for the employees. Maybe there are taxes created for society, but that's it, right? So that's in the traditional model. We're much focusing on these economic output of business activities. And what's new is that nowadays organizations, businesses are expected to also provide somehow social value and an ecological value on top of that, right? To contribute to the preservation of ecosystems, to contribute to social inclusion, and so forth. And the list of what kind of value add can be created on the social and ecological dimensions, that's still being in progress. But what is clear is that organizations are expected to do that, and that actually now the regulation also expect them to do that. So we have a new corporate sustainability reporting directive in place here in Europe that forces firms not just to report on environmentally related risks that have been associated, I think, to the discourse on ESG, primarily over the last couple of years, but also about the impact they create on our social and ecological environment, right? So what we are doing here is trying to set up a relation between these domains, so about the values that are always in place in an organization. And I think already the picture that John showed is that already on the second level, so to say, of the model you're using, already the organizational purpose is being challenged, right? So we would understand purpose, mission, vision, and these normative statements as something being based or derived from these values that need to be reconsidered. These somehow affect the way that innovation is being done in terms of product, service, process innovation, or in the more strategic level of business model innovation, or regarding innovation in overarching networks or the identity of an organization. And also we just had this discussion this morning here with the colleagues from TÜV, from the Impact Project, that it's not enough anymore to think about replacing existing products by a green alternative or setting up new energy efficient processes in order to become a sustainable company. It's not even enough, as the new corporate sustainability directive kind of calls for, to create new sustainable business models. But in order to produce somehow sustainability oriented outcomes on a reliable basis, you need to think about and reconfigure the whole culture of an organization, because elsewise happens what Peter Drucker already claimed, I don't know, maybe 50 years ago or so, right? That culture eats sustainability strategy, in this case, for breakfast, right? And then you don't have anything left for lunch, right? So you can see related publications on these issues here also on the UX Berlin website. We've been working on that, and within the special interest group, Values-Based and Sustainable Innovation, over the last couple of years, together with different companies, together with different academic institutions, that I will tell you a little bit after the break. And so this is a challenge for companies, for organizations, and how to translate the one into the other and backwards, so to say. And there are some tools and methods that are not only useful for companies, but also for students, understanding these transitions by applying the same tools. And these tools we will have a look into after the break.
Fantastic. Thank you, Henning. And I'm going to stop sharing because I think you're going to put something into the chat, Leo.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to all you three. It was so good to see this very, inspiring, but also a little bit frightening situation, because I think that we are in a situation of a certain cognitive dissonance where we as universities and educators are 100% sure that we need to educate toward a sustainable development. And we have a future generation of a younger generation that they think these values are the most important. But then we all say it's challenging, it's difficult. And Bill, you were saying, okay, circular economy, it's the way through, but it's challenging. And you see, and I think that as John demonstrated, you know, we have some levels. We may have tools and frameworks, as Henning was discussing. And I think that this is the way to be, you know, to help also the others to make it much more easier than it actually is, because it's actually very difficult. What the experience that I wanted to share, and I have my grade somewhere, and I have my Miro board somewhere that I need to share. How many? Here we are. So we can go through it. Basically, our strategy was a little bit about, hey, why don't we integrate sustainability since the beginning of everything we are doing? Because, you know, many people are saying, or many students have this misconception. Okay, but that's I'm heading a master in innovation management, and many of our students, but also some employers of our students, they say, well, you are teaching technologies, innovation, and innovation is nothing to do with sustainability. You know, the technologies are dangerous for achieving sustainable development goals, you know. And from the other side, we are also another misconception that many people say, okay, but this is a master and you read it on business administration, so the business is about money. Don't you think that? And how is it possible to make money out of sustainable, you know, kind of venture? I know many sustainable venture that are no profit and on. So we are living this misconception, especially in a very small country as Switzerland, where banks were the leaders of everything, and the social businesses were still looking like I don't know if they are profitable. So we need to change the paradigm, as you said. And I think that regulation, as Henning said, is doing a lot. Despite we're not in the European Commission and the European Union, it is affecting also Switzerland's strategy on how to move with companies. And so our approach was simply to fake with this cognition issues of our students and put sustainability in the very beginning and in a very serious way. And basically, that's just an example of what we are doing. We basically integrate the sustainability in every of our courses, even finance, even accounting, everything is about also sustainability. And for making an example on a course on technology trends, we basically started from problems, as always in entrepreneurship. You know, you start, what are the problems, but which kind of problem? Well, sustainability issues. So we basically provided some framework on the ESG level. So everyone, every of our students knows that there are many sustainability issues, you know, in the world. And the risk there is also that they focus on a very broad issues, and then they feel the sense that we are useless. You know, we cannot do anything because the problems about sustainability are so big, so important. How can a startup may deal with a sustainability issue? So we basically are saying to them, well, even global warming, which is a huge issue, well, you can break it down into smaller problems. So we are basically using this root cause to determine some specific cause of the global warming. Same thing with the other levels like age discrimination and corruption. And then we guide students to work on the selected specific issues in order to develop a very specific sustainability oriented but business opportunity. So basically we start with a sustainability problem, and then we go back just after with the business opportunities. And when we are trying to lose a little bit the focus of sustainability, because when we are talking about a little bit about the competitors and your solution, how to make money, then our students may tend to lose the focus of sustainability, and we go back the second week in this case with, of course, the business model design, but also business models, as Henning said, may be sustainable. So we force them to think in terms of sustainable business model development. So basically, this is just an asset for the amazing book of Henning, Florian, and Lorenzo. And we now have sustainable business model patterns, and then we can play with these tools in order to develop a more sustainable business model. And basically, in conclusion, I just wanted to say that it's true, it's challenging, especially from a mindset level. But that's the way we need to do as educators. So that's the future educators. And I think that we all agree that that's the way to be. And of course, my personal takeaway from these experiences with all of my amazing teachers, that they are really integrating sustainability related topics into the innovation management courses. We really need specific sustainability oriented tools, because the tools that we are using to deal with the, let's say, the whole way of doing business may need some revision in order to work with sustainability issues. That is what I wanted to share with you.
So I think the idea really was to move around the subjects, as we so often do, to dimensionalize things from different perspectives. And I think we just wanted, in the first session, John, I think we were just looking for a wider conversation about what do you do, what do you find difficult, examples, what Leo's just shown us, showing us practically the flow is very strong, very useful. So thoughts, reactions, anything you want to add, John?
Just that very much as a community of practice, we all share the concern for sustainability, but how do we get this message across and how do we engage? And in particular, in practical terms, that raises some questions which we benefit from sharing in terms of resources. As you probably know, if you don't, I can give you the link again, but we have a kind of innovation supermarket where we make available all sorts of resources, cases and tools and activities. But essentially, it's like a supermarket, help yourself. So the more we can put on the shelves, the more we can all benefit. So in terms of that, it'd be great to hear from you now what you have in the way of, for example, useful cases. There are some famous ones, but we could always do with some new and some updated ones. Also, cases from different sectors, from different contexts, different countries, different geographies. What sorts of tools? We know how powerful things like business model canvas are, but there are variants of that around sustainability, for example. Has anyone used them? Do you find them particularly helpful? Or what else have we got? And activities. Leo's flagged the way he structured a whole course, but part of, I think, a reflection we've had in this group many, many times is we can't just lecture anymore. We have to find other ways to get the students engaged, which might mean playing games with them. And I know Henning's going to speak about some of that shortly. It might mean doing other classroom exercises. It might be project-based learning. So what have we got? What do we use and what do we find valuable in terms of cases, tools, activities, or indeed other resources? So let's now open the community and see if we can fill up the supermarket shelves.
So I can go ahead. I have some ideas. So yeah, Leo, I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, I'm not sure whether you can share that the board that you showed with to us. I mean, I find it really useful for some of the lectures that I'm delivering. So my name is Tosi Borloy. I'm lecturer in innovation and circular economy at the University of Exeter Business School. So this year, I launched a new postgraduate master's level module called Innovation and Technology Policy. And sustainability is a major component of what I'm trying to do in that course. And so one of the frameworks that I found useful was the multi-level perspective. And John also briefly mentioned about we need a systems perspective to deal with this kind of problem. So the multi-level perspective by Gilles van Gils, I found really useful. So I used that framework to kind of, as Bill mentioned, to dimensionalize the wide range of issues. So it just helps you to kind of bring together a lot of different things, over in different regions involving different stakeholders. It just helps a lot. And so that was the lecture. So that's what the lecture was about. What role can policy plays when we deal with this kind of big net zero? Let's if we move towards transition, what role governments are playing or industrial policies are playing. So that's the whole idea of the lecture. And then the lecture also had an important component. It's tutorial, and our tutorial where I engage students in role playing. So role playing, I find role playing very useful. So role playing is very useful. So the case was that I gave them a case which was kind of an imaginary. So it's an imaginary country A, which is trying to structurally transform their economy from oil and gas to EVs and wind energy, to renewable sources of energy. And so the government of the imaginary country had just launched $100 million innovation fund, and it has opened it up for innovative startups to make the pitch. So I divided the students into different groups. So the first group was a EV startup, which they won the money, they won the part of the pie, the pot of money. The second was a wind energy startup. The third was an oil and gas multinational who is pitching, which basically they are arguing that you don't need that fund because we are here, you can give us the money and we'll do something about it. The fourth group of students was a university. So the government commissioned the university to work to provide general overview. And finally, the fifth group of students was the government. So it was a fun exercise. Got different groups of students to talk to each other to see how they can deliberate, and it's a very political process. Finally, they did come up with some solutions of who should get the fund, why they should get the fund, and how they should collaborate to bring about change, to structurally transform the economy. So it was a very great exercise, I thought.
Thanks, Tausif. That sounds good. So other things that people have done in this space? Yes, Saskia.
Not really that I've done like a project, but if I want to kind of get an understanding from the students for sustainability, I usually start with the old principles of frugal and reverse innovation, because they kind of get a better understanding that it doesn't have to be always bigger, better, wider, or whatever. And if they understand this concept, then we kind of get into discussion from frugal to reverse, what reverse means and how that could have also a positive impact in terms of sustainability. And that usually is a good starting point for a discussion, so that they don't realize. I take a lot of time in the beginning of an innovation management class to define what innovation is and get a good understanding that we are all on the same page, and that we talk about the theoretical concepts, which you all know about, but so that they understand it doesn't have to be always like the typical business view on whatever we're doing. It doesn't have to be always better, again, targeting the high market. And we then try to combine this with things like disruptive innovation, frugal and reverse innovation. That kind of gives us a better, first of all, it challenges the students because they have to connect all these dots together, but also kind of like ease them into the subject of sustainability. And that, from my perspective, really helps. Besides, then that's my background, because I'm not only teaching innovation management, but we're also teaching management accounting. And that means the whole part of reporting, especially in European countries, is like really big in the management accounting part right now. So I bring the knowledge that I have from that part in terms of what is the European standards, what is the performance indicators that have been asked for companies. I also kind of like throw this in at some points, and that gives them a possibility to understand then that we might need to change our business models because we have to fulfill these criteria, that we might need to innovate differently so we can actually not just report that, but make it as like a good business model in terms of combine it with a business perspective. So that's, it's not really structured, but at least I'm kind of like trying to get the strings together that I'm in the lucky situation that my classes are not so big, at least my innovation management classes, which allows me to get into very active discussions with my students. So if I have like, 20, 25 students, I split them up in groups and I jump from one group to another, and they have like focus questions that they're discussing, and that's usually the combination of these, and sustainability is always like kind of swings with it with most of the discussions that we have.
I really like that way as a more digestible way into the theme where you started there. So that sounds very promising. Other people want to share things that they've done which didn't quite work out. It's an area we don't know all the answers.
Maybe I can just briefly add on to what Saskia just said. I think, I mean, this is cannot be stressed enough, equally with the companies, but also with the students. And I also think it's a great way to start a module on these issues, to just ask, right? So what is your definition of sustainability in that respect, right? So we usually ask, what is your definition of values? What is your definition of value creation, for instance, right? And no matter how experienced the students are, you will get a wide range of different answers to that. And actually, even with a big classroom, I think you can do this exercise fairly quick, because if you just collect that on Post-its, then create some little clusters, and then after the exercise, look back on that initial image and see, okay, what kind of distance did we bridge and how far did we actually get to a common ground to start into the topic. So I think it's really a very nice approach, which I can just support, right? Not just to convey basic definitions or invite for a discussion around that, but to activate students, right, from the outset, to participate, to contribute, to work on these things together, right? So I think that's a really great approach.
Anybody else want to come in?
We have tried a couple of times to try to develop together with participants to develop some green business models. And we tried it both in Denmark with a couple of different companies. And I just recently been in New Delhi, India, teaching some IPR folks, IPR and sustainability. And I used some business model canvas found on a homepage called Therein, where they have some sort of green business model canvas templates. And we use that both places, and they worked reasonably well, but it's somehow, I find it difficult to keep the participants sticking to it the whole way, and by that ensuring the quality of the solutions in it. So this is where I'm talking about this lacking of intermix of tools. So the sustainability is kept the whole way. But yeah, so it didn't totally work up to our expectations. The participants found it very great and funny. But this ensuring the quality the whole way and ensuring the binding between the subjects seems a little bit harder than I expected.
My difficulty, Eric, is I'm writing down what you're saying because that's really, really helpful. Anybody else want to come in on what's worked, difficulties, challenges, ideas? Hi, Aracha, sorry.
Yes, Aracha. Yeah. Hi, I'm teaching the product design innovation, and my difficulties in teaching the subject linked to the sustainability is about the students, which is mostly that, like, I teach the bachelor degree and some master. It's difficult to make them understand the whole pictures of the sustainability. Yeah, it's sometimes when you focus on business and you need to find like someone said, it has to be the right business plan, right? And then they lost that focus on sustainability. And some group make a very good like outcome in terms of the value share value and then how to give the benefit to the society, but the business is not sound. So that's the contradiction I find in the teaching the sustainable innovation things.
What I really liked about what you shared with us, Leo, was really everything has to be rooted in sustainability, rather than you do good business and then you bolt on, because that's not good enough. we've been through that phase. So, and it was a bit about what Eric was saying again, which was if to keep the focus going, it's got to be rooted in, everything's got to be rooted in sustainability, whatever you're doing. And that's what I liked about the accounting reflections from Saskia. Can't get away from this. So having welcomed, so I think I've summarized my points. Samrina, come in.
Yeah, I also want to share my course experience. So basically, I'm teaching innovation and entrepreneurship at HMKW. And before that, Professor Henning was teaching this course. And this course is also part of our project, like strategy foresight for sustainability. So like for us, sustainability is an integral part of this course. And what we try to incorporate in this course is the future workshop. So that I would like to mention. So basically the students, so we talked about different innovation models. We talked about disruptive innovation, open innovation, all innovation aspects. And then so we ask the students to have a clear overview of the trends and the business implications. And based on that, we kind of used exploratory and normative scenarios. And we did a classroom exercise, a workshop day, where the students, took part and used these different scenario techniques to build their new business model strategies. So I think that's quite innovative approach for the future days to address the sustainability aspects.
I really like this this keeping on the innovation strategy aspect as part of framing it. Something that no organization can get away from. Lovely. Thanks, Samrina.
Welcome.
Anybody else want to come in?
Can I jump across then, Bill, briefly? I think there's lots already of good stuff around, and we could benefit from sharing particularly some of the cases and some of the models. I think there's also underpopulated areas which perhaps we need to think about as well. And for me, the one that comes up time and again is this working at the system level. Much of what we've learned about, much of what we still teach is about at the organization level. What can the board do? What can we do? That's fine if we've got that kind of agency. But so much of the change we're interested in at the sustainability level is system level. We need other people, and they may not all be on side. If I give a very specific example, I do a lot of work with the United Nations now, who are clearly addressing some serious sustainable challenges. They've got the SDGs to try and deliver on. But part of the problem there is that you can have some great innovations, but unless they scale, they won't have the impact. But in order to scale, you've got to bring on partners who may not share your values, may not share your interest. How do you get them on board? And so this part of the scaling journey, which is building the ecosystem, isn't a matter of saying, oh, let's all come together and do this nice joint venture. That's, the business world has it fairly simple sometimes with joint ventures. When we're trying to put a real ecosystem together, maybe you're trying to do something in the world of energy. You're trying to save energy, introducing cheap solar panel electricity and lighting. Fine. But in order to do that, you need to get the Ministry of Energy and maybe the Ministry of Economics involved. You need to have distribution. You're probably competing with the existing energy suppliers and so on who don't want this. That's a big question. So in a sense, there are challenges around how do we assemble ecosystems that work? So I put that up as a question because we haven't got that many tools. We're personally experimenting with value network tools, trying to understand that, and I can share some of those. But one of the cases Bill and I teach is a great case if you want to look at a company called Better Place, which was a startup trying to make the world a better place. It was in the electromobility space. The idea was to do battery swap. So you drive in a gas station, instead of filling up with fuel, you swap your battery and off you go. And it solves the problem of range anxiety. So really nice idea. It convinced some serious players, including the chairman of Nissan Renault, to devote a whole factory to making it. So tremendous idea. Where it ran aground, and it failed spectacularly, where it ran aground after 3 years of life was essentially trying to build a system and get all the bits to work together. So for me, that's where some of the challenges lie. And I'd certainly be interested in any cases or tools which pick up that system level challenge.
Actually, maybe if I can add on to that, I mean, that brings us, could bring us right back to what Samrina said, right? So we had that challenge here with one project with the GIZ, but also here in northern Germany, where different stakeholders in the region were trying to build a sustainable energy region in northern Germany, right? And we brought together all these, sometimes conflicting parties, like some utilities, some solar providers, wind energy providers, more conservative, more forward-looking players, so to say. And what we did was actually we did apply this futures workshop methodology and created some normative scenarios, because you rightly said that sometimes you have values that are not well aligned with one another, but usually looking for it, there can be still overarching values, or at least overarching scenarios that these different players then can subscribe to. And once you've developed such a normative long-term vision for a certain region, for instance, we started thinking about going into this backcasting activity, right? So given the fact, or given the assumption that this is what we're all striving for, what does that mean for our business today? And then we can start developing sustainable business models that kind of cater to this kind of common vision, which was just one approach. I can share that here on the link on the chat in a bit as well.
I hope I'm going to have a case study for everybody. I'm working on a strangely exciting project where we're trying to create a completely new part of the fish industry, farming king prawns, big prawns about that big, on land. And 10 days time, we're facilitating a workshop on who is involved in the ecosystem to develop this completely new industry. It's never been done before. And I'm hoping we can get some money and some video and some visualizations, and we can do some of that. I really like this whole futures workshop approach. So having things that people can relate to is so powerful. So I'm going to hope in the next 12 or 15 months to do something there. Okay, so just thinking about timing, has anybody got a last shout before we all go and grab a very quick tea or coffee or whatever drink you feel like you need, so we can get back by about 5 past the hour? Anybody got anything they want to add? So let me just check with Saskia. Are we doing okay? Did you manage to calm down post-teaching there? I hope we've played our role.
Absolutely. And I'm obviously not the only one that comes out of teaching or is in teaching and tries to parallel follow this meeting. So I think that's multitasking that I wouldn't say I could do. But so, yeah, I'm totally chill.
Okay. So shall we be back at 5 minutes, 7 minutes past the hour, something like that? Thank you very much for your stories and experiences. Really great to hear.
Yeah, okay, so thanks again very much, Bill and John, for inviting me. And so my task was here to show and share a couple of the tools we've been using in teaching mainly business psychology, but also in executive education at ESCP, which I'm also teaching at times. A lot of that is based on a couple of European projects, which has the really great side effect that a lot of these materials are also available as open access on the respective websites. There was first the Gamify project, and here you will see the link also to the website where a lot of these games and the materials are available. That is also the impact project that was mentioned initially already, where we're asking about how to establish values-based innovation cultures that then are capable of creating sustainable business impact. And the SF4S project that Samrina already mentioned, where we're talking about strategic foresight for sustainability. So kind of reconfiguration of the strategic foresight tools that we know in order to support sustainability strategizing and implementation as well. So on all these sites, you will find most of the tools that I will be talking about here. We also have a couple of books based on the results from these and other research projects. So the first one also available open access online. If you look into the PDF or the EPUB, that was actually co-authored here with John and Sune Gudiksen from Denmark on gamification for innovators and entrepreneurs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that approach. We were quite happy and even surprised that it was nominated and then got the runner-up for the Best Book Award at the EURAM conference this year. There is the basic kind of conceptual work that Florian and I did on values-based innovation management, and there is the book that Leo already mentioned on sustainable business design and sustainable business design patterns. And I think these patterns and the card deck we derived from that line of work also we use quite often and quite intensively in our teaching experiences now. So the first tool that's actually also the oldest that I want to introduce to you. So Leo also showed you I think there was the triple layered business model canvas, right, by a good colleague and co-author of ours also, Alexander Joyce. There are different tools based on the business model canvas that have been used. And of course, if we're talking about sustainability, we already said, so that has to be really rooted in the activity. And it's not just enough if you're rooted in there, but I think you have to iterate on that issue throughout the business development several times. So it's definitely good to use one of the sustainability-oriented business modeling tools if you're into that. But I think they have been so successful and so widespread that that they're really popular, of course, on the one side. On the other side, maybe they fell victim to their own success in some respect because people think it's too easy to do, right? And those of you that have been teaching, especially business modeling with a sustainability perspective, will have actually, that was part of our discussion here before the break already, that the connection may get lost, right? So that's why we created this kind of toolkit here already like 10 years ago or so. It's called the Business Innovation Kit. It's business modeling tool that starts from a reconsideration of organizational values and how to create a sustainable business based on that. It's available in English, German, Spanish, and Polish right now. And it's also, most of the materials are available with open access here from the UX Berlin Business Innovation Kit website. And what it does not only provide a template, so to say, to map some ideas and discuss around business models, but it's really an educational tool. So you can, it's comes in a little box and you can put that into student groups if they are master students, for instance, they should be able to really familiarize with business modeling, with sustainability-oriented business modeling, with different cases on sustainable business model design in a very self-directed manner, right? And then, of course, you can intervene at certain points, but it's really comes along with all the instructions you need, or the pitfalls also, or at least some of the pitfalls you have to be aware of when you're starting to model some kind of, hopefully then, sustainable business. So that's a tool we use a lot, and that's one of the experiences I also made with the teaching. It's not enough to just give them a the students, so to say, a tool or a template to discuss some of the design options you have there, but you really need to moderate the process quite closely and make sure the relevant reflections take place, right? There's also, not on Miro yet, but on Mural, we have a template available that you can use for like online exercises. And one of the first online exercises is to familiarize, for instance, with the different business model components using the case of Patagonia. So we kind of decomposed the Patagonia business model and a couple of other ones into, I think in Patagonia, it's like 40 different elements, right? And then you can facilitate a discussion. Okay, is that more part of the customer journey, or is that part of the value proposition? What's the distinction between those anyway? And you can learn from these cases, of course, to design your own, hopefully sustainable business model. The second, resource we have on that is the book here on sustainable business model design, where we identified 45 patterns. Patterns understood as a combination of sustainability challenges and business solutions to address or to make a positive contribution to these sustainability challenges that we derived from a very comprehensive literature review, where we're looking at all the business models that claim to be sustainable out there in the academic and in the gray literature, to identify these 45 patterns, and those are now condensed really into these 45 parts. And this you can really use, or we use that a lot in the executive education, for instance, at ESCP, to inspire and facilitate a discussion around more sustainability-oriented business model design using this business innovation kit here on the left-hand side. So you can have a first negotiation about or discussion around the values that you want to stand in for with your business activities, and then go into considering the different components and considering different patterns that other companies have used to address some of these challenges. And then a lot of what Leo also showed, right? Analysis of the root causes these companies are facing. That can be a very good entry point to then look for sustainable business model patterns that help you address these root causes and the challenges we're facing. So there's a lot of material also available on the Sustainable Business Design website, including a curriculum that I drafted on sustainable innovation management that makes use of a lot of these resources here from the book, and also goes beyond that into the general introduction on sustainability, reporting, framing the discourse, and then coming to an according understanding to design sustainable business models using these patterns. So that's really the work stream on sustainable business model design, values-based business model design. The second example that I want to show you, and this we could develop together with John and a lot of the colleagues from the Gamify project. Anna, I think you're in the call as well. She was also part of that group. And it's the attempt to look for games and gamified approaches to innovation and entrepreneurship that have been reported, and kind of putting them into a kind of taxonomy distinguishing between a normative, strategic, and operational management level, and some of the typical textbook innovation challenges that are described in these domains. So for instance, on operational level, of course, there's the classical innovation funnel, more focusing on product and service development, starting from framing the searching, generating ideas, selecting them, prototyping, implementing partial solutions, and then building these solutions in order to actually capture value. We have the strategic level involving the business modeling activity, including the business modeling activities, or the normative level involving the search for appropriate guidelines. That I think is actually also one of the mandatory things you need to do when you want to put a sustainability strategy into practice. And below you see a lot of the recurring, again, like problem solution combinations that we find. So these are not games, these are more design elements that you can use for creating appropriate games to address some of the innovation and entrepreneurship challenges here. And this is also contained in this book on gamification for innovators and entrepreneurs. So to give you one example, so that's a game we developed together with the Deutsche Telekom that wanted to improve their corporate sustainability. So we called it Corporate Sustainability Innovation Game. And it's composed out of different components. It uses quizzes, elements of surprise, role play we already heard, making trade-offs. It's relying on using dedicated facilitators and involves collective decisions in some activity flows that are on the second level here: awareness raising, dilemma solving, and ideation. And the way it works is that it introduces the topic of sustainability for the organization with a little quiz. You have to, I don't know, identify who said famous things. Was that Greta Thunberg or Donald Trump making certain claims about sustainability, for instance? In order to get into the topic, familiarize with it, then you're facing certain dilemmas. For instance, on the system level, right? How do you deal with unsustainability in the supply chain, for instance? How do you deal with shortages or some problems you have been identifying in the organization or in your ecosystem, so to say? And participants have to take decisions, argue for them, and are then rated by different stakeholders like journalists, like NGOs, like the internal like the shareholders of the organization, like other employees, and so forth. They go then into a challenge sourcing, so they select some of these challenges within their organization, go into some ideation, and then build some future scenarios, how they could envision a future where these problems that have been identified before are being solved. This whole game, and actually it was initially designed in the Corona times, right, as a pure online activity. So all the templates and the materials you can download from the Gamify website, and I think also from the UX Berlin website by now, and it's all available there. If you need the open slides, then please contact me so I can also share those together with you. Last but not least, and that brings us then here to the impact project that was also mentioned. Here we are trying to advance organizational cultures to be more sustainability oriented and to become more aware of the values they are trying to pursue. And here we are also developing like a whole toolbox of different methods. We call that Sustainable Innovation Practices Toolkit. And one major part of that are the teaching and coaching method cards, where you can learn, for instance, how to make ethnographic inquiry in organizations to reveal these values in the organization, because they're usually, or not always, or actually just in rare cases, really self-evident. And we have another format that also, I think, goes into the system level. Here, Sustainable Ecosystem Development Workshop, where you work also with some of these normative scenarios that Samrina also mentioned, in order to create a sustainable innovation ecosystem vision, and then identify measures for translating that back into the present time. And these toolboxes, or these, I mean, in this case, it's just these are just different card sets that should support facilitators and also teachers in designing similar workshop formats, right? So all these should be available on the respective websites, on the Impact website, on the Gamify website, on the SF4S website. And yeah, and so there is some time now for like some questions and understanding. And then Leo also prepared us a Miro board for following up on some discussions around which of these tools and materials you consider potentially relevant for your teaching, which experiences you may have already made with similar tools and methods, and which other tools and methods you consider to be helpful for your courses, right? So that's the follow-up discussion we can have, unless you have any questions regarding the tools that I just showed you.
We've very, very briefly to talk about what's coming next, because we've come to the end with this workshop of our 2023 program. What we've tried to do as a community is to share different experiences and to try different ideas out. So today was a theme-focused workshop. We've had other workshops focused on the process and the tools and so on. So what comes next? Well, perhaps some useful knowledge. When two worlds collide. You may be aware, hopefully you are, that ISPIM has a special interest group, a SIG, around teaching and coaching innovation. And what we're planning for that wider group, which involves quite a lot of people, is a program of webinars every other month. And I'll put an early commercial in. Our dear colleague, Katarina De Vita, on the 1st of December this year, is already going to do a webinar on her experience of using AI in teaching. So I think it's very relevant for a lot of us. That's 1st of December at 1600 CET. But that's one of what we hope is a series of webinars every other month. And then what we're planning to do with our future educators is keep this interactive component and do that every other month. So the two will fit together. So there's really something happening in this space every month, if you're interested. What we particularly want to focus further on in our future educators thing is how to, getting to grips with sharing ideas, tools, looking at particular themes, bringing in, as we've done today, guests and so on. We do plan a live in-depth workshop on Sunday morning at the Tallinn conference, the ISPIM conference, and throughout that conference, multiple presentations and workshops during the conference itself. So lots more hopefully happening in this space, expanding and building on what we've done. That QR code, I'm trying to get really fast here. We've now got a newsletter going out, and do please, if you haven't yet, sign up to it. We'll also publicize it on the ISPIM website, but that QR code should take you to a Substack newsletter where you can sign up to make sure you receive it. And we'll supply more details of all of these forthcoming things very soon. So Bill, with that, back to you.
I think it's just to say thank you, everybody, squeezing in. Everybody's busy. Your attendance, you're getting involved, getting to meet many of you face to face in Ljubljana, but also getting to know you both last year and this year. Been fantastic. It really helps me do my job, and it also makes me braver. So thank you to everybody, and to Henning today. Thank you very much. Fantastic. I think on behalf of John and Leo and myself, thank you very much for getting involved with Future Educators. And we look forward to working with you next year.